Welcome to Viewin' and Reviewin', where I pull older movies off the shelf, watch them, and let you know if I believe they're worth your time to watch or not. I'm Bobby T, your online video store clerk, and I'll be searching through my VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray collection to find titles that I think may be interesting to review. In today's episode, I'll be reviewing 1981's An American Werewolf in London, written and directed by John Landis, and starring David Naughton, Jenny Agutter, Griffin Dunne, and John Woodvine. Let me read you the DVD cover. It's a rainy night on the Welsh moors. Two American students on a walking tour of Europe trudge on to the next town, when suddenly the air is pierced by an unearthly howl. 3 weeks later, one is dead, the other is in the hospital, and the nightmare begins for an American werewolf in London. David Naughton, Griffin Dunne, and Jenny Agutter star in this contemporary story of the macabre, which takes you from the Welsh moors to Picadilly Circus, Traffalgarr Square, and the grounds of Windsor Castle. It's written and directed by John Landis, the man who brought you National Lampoon's Animal House, The Blues Brothers, Trading Places, Innocent Blood, and Coming to America. To add to the chill, there is art direction by Academy Award winner Les Dilley of Star Wars and Alien fame, and special makeup effects by six-time Academy Award winner Rick Baker, whose work includes Star Wars, The Nutty Professor, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Men in Black. Well, I'll say I've never seen the back of a DVD list so many resumes of those making the film. It's kind of silly, actually. Anyway, back to the film's review. It's funny how I'd not seen this film until about 5 years ago, and now I've seen it 3 times within that span. This is one of those films that doesn't quite know whether it's a horror film, a comedy, or a drama, but one thing is sure is that they got the mix close to perfect for 1981. And it made a classic that's worth viewing and reviewing every few years. John Landis got the idea for this film while on location for Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where Landis was working as a gopher. The setting of 2 college students backpacking across the Welsh moors is both hypnotic and mysterious. When they're attacked, it feels almost dreamlike. The setup to the attack was both eerie and compelling. I mean, we know it's coming, which makes it harder on the filmmakers to create that atmosphere of terror, but they really pulled it off. One trick the filmmakers used was from the original 1942 film Cat People, which we reviewed on the Movie House Memories site if you want to go look at that review, where they used darkness and character confusion to howls and growls off-screen all around before we actually see any attack. It's a creepy way of pulling in your audience, and I believe it worked really well when the attack actually happened. I do believe they spent a little longer than needed inside the London hospital, where David Naughton was recovering from basically cuts and bruises for over a month. It wasn't quite realistic, but it did give us the chance to understand Jenny Agutter's Nurse Florence Nightingale effect on David, which turned into a supposed love affair. I think that may be the least believable part of the story, though, which I will get into momentarily. I thought one of the best parts of the film, besides the obvious Oscar-winning special effects by uber monster artist Rick Baker, was the slow deterioration of Griffin Dunne's body throughout the film. He starts as this charming college student that gets ripped apart by the werewolf in the opening. Then as the movie progresses, he acts as kind of a Robert Marley character from Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol, foretelling David's transformation into a werewolf, and Griffin's body comically transforms into this horrific shell of ripped flesh and skeleton. But he's fully functional in how he continually pushes David to commit suicide to end the curse. It's better than it sounds in the film. David Naughton, who at the time was the face of Dr. Pepper, was dropped as that company's spokesperson due to the nudity in this film, which was actually edited down from the original print for theatrical release. Naughton's willingness to bear all in whatever scene was necessary gave this film added realism that older Universal Studios monster classics like The Wolf Man and Frankenstein couldn't do due to censorship concerns of their day. I still believe that Rick Baker's ingenious special effects to turn Naughton into a werewolf on screen before our very eyes instead of, ducking behind a couch or fading to black, gave us a glimpse of the horror and pain the character experiences during his transformation. It grounded the film beautifully and gave us a glimpse of how David didn't want to commit the horrific murders. They happened despite his best efforts, like all classic movies, monster movies should. So, my overall report card of this film, it looks like this. Does it stand the test of time? As dated as some of the London sets are, yeah, I believe this does stand the test of time really well. I'd give this an A-. The special effects are startlingly fresh, even by today's standards. And as far as werewolf movies are concerned, I'd say this is still at the very top of the heap. The story, I'd give this a B. Yeah, we've all seen werewolf movies before with Lon Chaney, but this one made fun of itself by mocking certain tropes like silver bullets along the way, which made it that much more endearing. We have two young adults getting attacked on the moors only to find out one was bitten and cursed unless he's either killed or he kills himself to stop the curse. Throw in some concerned citizens trying to help a confused man get to the help he needs, only to have him become the very thing everyone doesn't believe he'll become. So let the ripping and shredding of human flesh begin. It's horror light, which I appreciate. And it works that much better due to the special effects. As I said earlier, the love part was a little corny since David and the nurse really didn't know anything about each other outside the hospital. So the fact that Jenny walks up to a murderous werewolf and thinks love is going to stop a deranged monster from ripping her to shreds is a little far-fetched. But that's nitpicking the story, so take that with a grain of salt. The cast. It's a decent cast. I give it a B. David Naughton is really good, even though he's a little too cheerful for a guy who may or may not be cursed for all eternity, but that's just Naughton being Naughton. Maybe they prescribed him amphetamines in the hospital when the camera wasn't looking? Who knows? Jenny Agutter was appropriately British and beautiful in her portrayal of the lovelorn nurse of a lunatic. I gotta say, one of my favorites though was Griffin Dunne as the original victim of the werewolf. Every time he was on screen, I knew it would be funny and tragic at the same time. The rest of the cast was decent, but nothing special. Imagine a British television actors of the late 70s and you'll get an idea of who they were. The cinematography. For 1981, this was one of the better attempts. I'd give this a B. The Welsh moors are moody, bleak, and lovely all at the same time. The London hospital looked exactly as you'd expect. Downtown London at Picadilly Circus was cheerful and showed an era we Americans don't get a chance to see so much, which I did like. And once again, the special effects and how they were filmed are extraordinary for a 40-year-old film. The special effects by themselves deserved an A+. The music. I found this score a lot of fun. I'll give this a B+. John Landis tried tracking down every wolf or werewolf or eerie song possible for the film, and it showed positively. The sole reason it doesn't get an A+, though, is because they somehow inexplicably did not include Warren Zevon's Werewolves of London, which was a major oversight. I read somewhere that David Naughton and Griffin Dunne to this day still don't know why Landis didn't include that song on the soundtrack. Otherwise, it hit all the right marks throughout. So, based on the above scores, I'd give this film a solid B score. There are better horror films out there. There are better horror comedies out there. But few of those films can boast an Oscar-winning special effects genius like Rick Baker at the height of his powers. This film has a good story, a very good lead cast, on-location shots in Wales and Picadilly Circus in full 80s neon, and a crackerjack score about all things werewolfy. I think this film is worth revisiting if you've seen it before. And if you haven't, and you aren't fully into the hack 'em and slash 'em gore fests that most current horror films are going for, this might just fit the bill as a lighter than expected, but still plenty of medium-level gore and jump scares to make horror fans that aren't necessarily gore fans happy. I really enjoyed this film during the third viewing, and I hope you will too. So, here are a few other recommendations along this same line. The Lost Boys. This is a story of two brothers who have just moved to the vampire capital of the world in California. One of the boys accidentally drinks the blood of one of the teenage biker gang's leader, who happens to be a vampire in disguise of a punked-out Kiefer Sutherland. All kinds of comical gore ensues as the two Coreys aim to impale these fanged, twisted sister wannabes into oblivion. Second is Evil Dead, the original, not the remake. The story of a group of teens that go to a remote cabin in the woods, and all kinds of evil wickedness surrounds them and ultimately takes them out one by one until the final hilarious climax between Bruce Campbell and the Evil Dead that spawned two even better sequels. And not surprisingly, 1935's Werewolf of London. This is less a recommendation and more of a, you gotta be kidding that this film actually exists. I know it's old. Yes, the special effects are subpar because Rick Baker hadn't even been born yet, but this is still worth a watch since it's about a current day, as in 1935 current day, man who travels to Tibet and is bitten by some kind of beast. But when he returns to jolly old England, he transforms into a mutant werewolf that kills people, much like our subject film here. It's basically a really old version of our film here with all the coolness that applies. Well, that's it for An American Werewolf in London. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click the like button below. If you want to keep up to date on my future reviews, please click on the subscribe button below. If you want to purchase An American Werewolf in London on Blu-ray, or if you wish to purchase any of the other titles I mentioned earlier, please follow the Amazon links below. And if you have any suggestions for movies you would like me to review, please leave a comment below and I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, be sure to help others in need because it's always the right thing to do. Have a great week.